Hey, in this video, I'm going to review my PlayStation collection, and I actually don't have too many PlayStation games at the moment, just because I didn't have a PlayStation while it was a viable console. I probably got one around the year 2000, 2001. I was mainly an N64 guy back then, just because that was all I had. But I remember back in the day, I used to kind of look with jealousy at the PlayStation aisle, which was like 4 times as big as the N64 game aisle. Mainly because one thing I will say about PlayStation games is that most of the good games have really cool box art. I'd say the PlayStation games have, like, on average, like, much better box art than any other console box art for whatever reason. So I used to kind of just look at the aisles, looking at all the games I wanted but couldn't have. But I got some of them right now. But moving right along, the first game I'll review is PaRappa the Rapper. As far as I know, this is one of the early era PlayStation games. I remember seeing the commercial when the game came out, and I remember wanting the game. I didn't know what it was. When you're a kid, you latch on to these mascot characters, and the commercial was interesting enough, so I remember really wanting it. Obviously, I couldn't get it until years later. But basically, as the title would somewhat indicate, it's a rhythm game based around rap. It's kind of a Simon Says game, kind of like DDR or Guitar Hero, but without a peripheral. You can just use the PlayStation controller, and it kind of, makes the beat, makes the lyrics while you're going on. I think this is one of the first rhythm games, actually. Predates DDR, I believe. I haven't really read up on it too much, but yeah, it's an interesting game. I like the music. But I will say I don't really like the Simon Says gameplay of most games, just because I think it's a little too simplistic. In terms of rhythm games, I prefer like Rez or Lumines, where it's the focus is on another gameplay mechanic, but you're dynamically creating rhythm while you're playing, which is much more interesting to me personally. But I do like this game, and just because it's kind of charming and just kind of unique, so. It's also available on PSP, a port of this game. There's a sequel on PS2, so yeah, check it out. It's not too expensive these days. And next one I'll review is a popular one, Metal Gear Solid. Obviously, as you can see, this isn't the original box art. This is actually from the Metal Gear Solid Essential Collection, but this is still the PlayStation version. You can actually use this on a PS1, despite the fact that it was bundled with Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, so that's kind of cool. But there really isn't much more I can say about this game that other people haven't said. I love this game. This is probably one of my favorite games. I like the story. This is probably one of the only games where I liked the complex story. I usually don't like stories in games, especially like the more drawn out ones, like I'll get into later with a few other games. But yeah, this is a great game. It still holds up for the most part. I will say that this game is kind of outdated in a few ways, like the battle with Sniper Wolf, where you have to like lie down and snipe her. You're kind of open for attack the whole time, or yeah, it's your first encounter with Sniper Wolf, I think, when she first. Can't remember exactly. It's been a few years since I've last played it, but it's your first encounter with the Sniper Wolf, and you have to lie down to snipe her, and it's just like you're always exposed, and it's kind of weird, and you're not sure if you're gonna win or if she'll win. It's just a very, there's not a very modern way of doing that kind of battle, and there's a battle later in the game where you face like that tank guy and like this Pac-Man maze, and it's just kind of a crapshoot. You're not sure if you're gonna win or if he's gonna win. It's just weird. And another thing I will say is that it's kind of a difficult game on your first playthrough, just because unlike in the later MGS games, you actually have a life bar that increases after you beat each boss, but when you start out, your life bar is actually pretty small. So at least I found myself dying quite a few times. which they fixed in Twin Snakes. I actually like Twin Snakes better. I like both of the games a lot, but I prefer Twin Snakes. I won't go on defending it because that would take a long time since it gets a lot of backlash. But I won't get into that right now. It's a great game. I would say more, but you've heard it all. So on to the next game. Metal Gear Solid VR missions. This is actually kind of like an expansion of sorts for Metal Gear Solid. It was bundled with later versions of Metal Gear Solid. I don't think it was sold standalone. Oh no, wait, this was sold standalone in America. In Japan, I think it was bundled. Yeah, we'll go with that. But this is basically you're just in it's kind of a small game. It's not like it doesn't have a story or anything. It's not canon, quote unquote, but you're basically thrown into like multiple scenarios. It's basically like a stealth mission pack. It's fun for what it is. It's just not very consequential. Yeah, it's really all I can say about this one. I like it just because I do like the stealth mechanics of Metal Gear Solid, even though in Metal Gear Solid 1, at least, it's basically just you looking at your radar the entire time, like you're playing Pac-Man or something, which of course they took away in later versions like MGS4. But yeah, let's move on to the next game. For the record, I do like that game, and I think you should get it if you're into that game. MGS1 anyway. Next game is Strider 2. It also includes Strider 1, arcade version, I believe. But you probably heard of this guy if you've ever played a Marvel vs. Capcom 1 or 2. This is where he comes from. The game is basically a 2D side-scrolling action game. It's very arcadey, since this, of course, did originate in the arcades. Like I said, it includes Strider 1 as well. The most controversial part about this game is that in Strider 2 you get unlimited continues. Which I have a huge problem with, just because an arcade game like this where there's no consequence, it just makes for a boring experience, just because you're not fighting for anything. You're not learning the deeper mechanics of the game. You're just kind of, you don't care if you die. You just keep, plowing forward and going on the offense rather than trying to like dodge attacks or, counter certain things or whatever. Like a common counter argument to that is that, you can set the lives yourself. If you die 3 times, you can just turn off the game and reset it, and that you can just manually make game overs like that, and I just don't agree with that at all. I mean, just making that extra effort, for one, is kind of annoying, and two, this is the PlayStation. The entire PlayStation family is known for being like the king of load times, other than like the Neo Geo. PS1, 2, and 3, they have lots of load times. So I mean, if you keep resetting the game, traversing through the menus and stuff, that's going to take like 2 minutes to like restart a game in total. So I mean, why would I want to do that? I mean, it is a fun game, don't get me wrong, but if there's no consequence in this sort of arcade style game, what's the point of digging deep into this game? One interesting thing about Strider 2 is that in the US they had this misprint with the discs, where Strider 2 was actually printed on the Strider 1 disc and vice versa. So that's kind of funny that they let that slip. This is one of my favorite games, period. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and it's highly regarded, and most people consider it the best Castlevania. I would agree. Though Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which is you can find on the PSP or the Wii Virtual Console, it's almost on par with this game. But I just appreciate this game more for what it did, and the soundtrack is incredible, and I just like the leveling up, and how you can upgrade your weapons, so you can definitely break the game with one of the weapons called the Chrysogrim, I think, which can basically just kill every boss in like 2 seconds or less. So but it's definitely a really fun game. It has some very memorable voice acting. The die monster, you don't belong in this world, and what is a man, a miserable pile of secrets or whatever. This classic bad translation, but in a good way in this case. Uh, I don't know what else I could add that already hasn't been said about this game a lot already. Definitely the Castlevanias that have preceded this game have tried to copy the formula to limited success, in my opinion. None have come quite as close to this game in terms of quality. You can find this basically anywhere on Xbox Live, Arcade, PSN, PSP, Saturn, even though that's a terrible port. So, yeah, you have a lot of options if you want this game. Definitely a classic. I would recommend it highly, obviously. The next game I'm going to review is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And among the internet gaming community, games like this are kind of looked down upon, these sort of sports games, or in this case, a skateboarding game, and which is a shame because I think there's room for these sorts of games and, the games that, the internet likes. Somewhere in between, I guess. But this is an absolutely fantastic game. It blows away the first one. The first one is obsolete at this point. This one just added a lot more complexity to the game with manuals, and the controls were a lot smoother, and the soundtrack was awesome. One thing I will say about at least the first, I'd say 3, maybe 4 Tony Hawk games, is that they're very sort of cohesive. They all follow this one singular vision of kind of I can't find the right word for it right now. I'd like to say, kind of, we don't give a fuck. The developer Neversoft just kind of, with the soundtrack, like this punk rock and like underground rap and kind of the opening of the logo with like the Neversoft logo, kind of edgy and. Sorry, I'm kind of bumbling right now. At the ending credits where you can see the Neversoft employees doing like stunts and stuff like that. It's just, you can tell they had a really good time making it, and the game just sort of has this theme of edginess that, it's all very cohesive, and I love it. It's kind of a coin toss between 2 and 3 as to which one is my favorite in the series. Even if you don't like skateboarding, this is just a fantastic series. Of course, it falls, kind of went downhill after 3 or 4, depending on, what you believe. In my opinion, it was never really the same after 3. 4 was okay. Yeah, I love this game so much that I actually have like 4 versions. I have this PlayStation version, which, as you can see, I bought it for $2. An N64 version, which I got for free, and I also have it on the GBA, which I got as a launch title over Super Mario Advance. Actually, I loved that game too. During the time, I was amazed by the graphics. As pathetic as that sounds these days. And in my opinion, I also have the superior definitive version on the Xbox, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, which kind of updates the graphics. And yeah, I think it's enough for this game. Definitely one of my favorites, though. I'm not just saying that. The next one is kind of a crappy game. Aladdin. Let's see, what's it called? Nasira's Revenge. I got this out of morbid curiosity over anything else. I remember seeing the commercial before I had a PlayStation, and I'm a huge fan of Aladdin on the Super Nintendo. So when you're a kid, you kind of follow the franchise and not the developer. Obviously, the developer of the Super Nintendo one was Capcom, headed by Shinji Mikami, the Resident Evil / Resident Evil 4 guy. But this one is just... this one's just your regular, licensed shovelware. It's just a generic 3D platformer. It's just not very good. You know, I can't say I'm disappointed. I only got this like last year. I kind of knew it was going to be crappy, but I was always curious anyway. And moving on to, I'd say, my third favorite series. We're going to get into a bunch of these games. Mega Man, I'd say behind Mario and Zelda, respectively. This is my favorite series. So, on to Mega Man 8. Obviously, this is the regular Mega Man series, not X or anything like that. And up until, I'd say, 2009, this was the last mainline Mega Man game. And actually, Mega Man X actually came out after Mega Man 6, so for whatever reason they still continued on with 7 and 8, but it's a pretty good game. I wouldn't say it's as good as the NES games or even Mega Man 7. But it's very colorful. I love the graphical style of this game, and it's very whimsical, very colorful, and just like you have a soccer ball for some reason that you use as a weapon, and there's like a clown boss, and there's a lot of I think like a party ball is your kind of like from Smash Brothers. That kind of like you use that to like gain items and stuff, and one thing I will say about this game is that it has some of the worst voice acting in history, in a good way. Especially Dr. Light. He kind of sounds like Elmer Fudd, and it's just you should check it out on YouTube if you didn't already know. It's very entertaining, but yeah, I actually do like this game. The level design isn't as good as Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 2 or 3. I'd say that those two are the pinnacle of the original Mega Man series. Even Mega Man 9, I think, is a fantastic game. But this is definitely worth a shot, and it's actually a very cheap game that you can find relatively easily. Next Mega Man game is probably my favorite game in the entire Mega Man series, period. X, regular, Legends, otherwise. Mega Man X4. Sadly, I only have the greatest hits version. I got this around the time the PS1 was dying, so yeah. This is just a fantastic game. It has the best music in the series, in my opinion. It has great levels, great bosses. I love the balance between the upgrades and everything. There aren't too many collectibles to find, which we'll get to that later. But it gets to be a problem that the series kind of held the series back and kind of made it terrible. So this is a great game. I replay it all the time. I probably beat it like 20 times by now. You can play as Mega Man and Zero fully for the first time. You can only play previously you could only play as Zero for like temporarily, but they each have their own campaigns in this, which is really cool. And yeah, definitely check out the soundtrack if you haven't already. It's all on YouTube. Next Mega Man game, Mega Man X5. This is probably my least favorite X game before the PS2 era. Just because I thought, the levels weren't very good. Way too many upgrades. There are like 3 different armor suits you get by collecting like 3 different pieces in each stage. It just got way too overwhelming, and it had amazing music though, which you can expect from just about every Mega Man game. I've only beaten this like twice, which sounds like a lot in general. Most people only beat a game once, and for Mega Man games, people usually don't even beat it once. So, but I just didn't really like it as much as 4 or any of the others really, other than 7 and 8. And next one is Mega Man X6. A lot of people don't like this game. I can understand why. It's actually kind of a broken game. As far as I know, this could just be speculation, but I don't think they actually play tested the game. I've heard that on a message board once, and I think it's true just because it's so unbalanced in terms of the difficulty curve. I only beat the game once, and it's an incredibly hard game. It's probably the hardest game I've ever beaten. Uh, I couldn't even beat it with Mega Man. I had to use Zero. So otherwise, it's not that good of a game, but I kind of do like it just because it's so like strangely difficult in like a funny way. So I don't know. Most people would say this is the worst in the series. Before the PS2 era, obviously 7 and 8 are just the consensus like horrendous. So stay away from those at all costs. But yeah, 6. I believe that Inafune, the creator, ended the series after 5, and they just kind of churned 6, 7, and 8 out, which is why they're pretty bad. But yeah. Moving on from the X series, we move on to the Mega Man Legends series, which I'm actually replaying this game right now, and it's actually what spawned me to create this PlayStation Collection video. And I actually originally got this game on the N64. It's just called Mega Man 64, and came out in 2001 actually, which is I think 3 or 4 years after this game came out. So. And I remember that I just happened to see it in the stores, and I loved Mega Man, so I had to get it. And this is actually the superior version of the N64 version, just because, while the N64 version did look a little bit better, a little bit crisper, it didn't have as many jaggies, this one has much better audio and controls, which I have to say the controls aren't very good in this game either, so you can only imagine how bad they are on the 64 version. I'm not sure how I originally beat the N64 version looking back. But this is a very ambitious game. There's a huge overworld, and there's voice acting in the game for a lot of the dialogue and a lot of NPCs, and it's basically an RPG. It's not like the other Mega Man games. And I got this at just the right time while I was still young, and my mind was open to these kind of new side steps in these like already established series. I don't know if this came out today if I'd like it, just because by this point I'm already set in my ways. But this is a really good game. It doesn't age well in a few areas. For example, the voice acting is pretty bad. You didn't really notice it at the time because you didn't really have a good sense of what good voice acting is. But it's pretty bad in this, and I just don't like how the text scrolls. It's really slow, and it takes a long time to, get through the game. The pacing is kind of slow. But what I do love about the game is that, you're always upgrading your weapons, your Mega Buster. It's always like increasing your stats as you get new parts. You get new weapons as a whole. There's this one weapon. It's kind of like the God weapon. I can't believe I actually got it back in the day, where you have to do like 20 menial tasks near the end of the game, including like giving a paint or like a paintbrush or something stupid like that. I can't remember exactly. I did it so long ago. And at the end, you get like this god weapon. It's like a laser where you can basically just beat the final boss in like 3 seconds. It's actually a really cool weapon, but yeah, I just love the progression of the game. There's a ton to explore. There are a ton of Easter eggs. There's a lot of humor in the game. Yeah, I'm absolutely enjoying my second playthrough of this game as I'm playing it right now. Not at this moment, but you get the drift. And let's see, moving on to its sequel, Mega Man Legends 2. I actually got this for $5 at a Blockbuster, which is crazy. I think it was in like 2003 when, I'm not sure why I was at a Blockbuster or how I even found the game, but I saw this game, and I remember I really wanted it. A couple years prior, I'd always see it, and I just didn't have the console for it. And I asked them how much they wanted for it, and they said $5, and that's actually a steal, because if you want it on eBay these days, you're gonna have to pony up like $50 at least, 50 to 70, maybe even more. So I'm lucky I got this in time. This particular version is the one I got from Blockbuster, which is still sealed. But I have played the game, and it's actually better than Mega Man Legends in most ways. It's just a little more focused, and the storyline it's a little less. It's crazy. That's all I can say. It involves moon landings and plot twists up the ass, and I actually haven't beaten it completely, which I plan to do after I complete Mega Man Legends 1. Uh, I don't know why. I just got sidetracked, I guess, when I was initially playing this, but I definitely look forward to playing it just because it's more fun to play, and yeah. And the last Mega Man Legends style game is the spin off, The Misadventures of Tron Bonne. She's the sort of the rival in the Mega Man Legends games. She's also in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3, in case you're wondering. And this is basically just like a minigame collection. They're pretty good minigames, I have to say. They're not Mario Party quality, but they're good. And that's all I can really say about it, other than that for some reason this game is actually worth quite a bit on eBay these days too. I got it just in time while I was still, well, whenever you get these kind of games, the best way to sort of obtain them is right as the generation ends. So like if you got GameCube games last year, you can get pretty much all of them dirt cheap, and in a few years they'll be a bit harder to find. One thing I will say about PlayStation games is that if you're looking to collect these things, most of the good games cost quite a bit of money. Unlike, say, the N64 or the Sega Genesis, in which like most of the library is like under $20. So PlayStation, especially the RPGs, cost quite a bit of money, unfortunately. And the next game is one of my favorite titled games, and definitely a guilty pleasure. Unfortunately, I don't have the box, but it's Street Fighter, the movie, the game. And this game gets made fun of a lot just because the graphics are digitized like Mortal Kombat, and it's based off the movie, which is, it's not bad. It's intentionally bad, which makes it funny. So, but yeah, this game gets made fun of a lot, mainly because of its title and just kind of how weird it is. One thing I will say though is that despite what you might think of the game based on the graphics, it actually is pretty responsive and plays a lot like Street Fighter 2 somehow. I hear it's an improvement based on the arcade version, which was terrible, so I don't know why. It actually is surprisingly decent and definitely a guilty pleasure, and I like playing it from time to time. It's just kind of a funny game in general. And I'll be moving on to my last batch of games, which the PlayStation was defined mainly by one company, Squaresoft, and the next batch will be devoted to Square games. And I'll tell you right away that I'm not a Square fan, so you might not like what you're about to hear. So this is basically the game everyone loves, Final Fantasy VII. And if you pay attention to the games at all, you always hear about this game. And I'll just briefly just say that it was a revolution in its day, 1997, in cinematics and presentation and CG cutscenes and all that. And if you went to GameFAQs like 4 or 5 years ago, they wouldn't stop talking about this game. Like in their stupid character battles, Cloud would always be number 1 or 2. Of course, the love has kind of died down a little on GameFAQs. I don't go there that often, but from what I understand, usually it's Nintendo characters now who win. Not that that's important, but anyway, yeah, GameFAQs is pretty bad, except for their facts, oddly enough. But yeah, I can't say that I have too much love for this game. I always put in a few hours into this game. I always want to like it. I love Squaresoft music. I love Nobuo Uematsu or whatever his name is. Well, that's kind of disrespecting. I do know his name, so. But I love his music. I always want to get into these games. Whenever I see Final Fantasy VI footage, I love the sprite work. I don't know. I can't get into the stories of these Final Fantasy games, which is basically like the whole point of it. Just because, in my opinion, this may be controversial, but I just think the RPG mechanics in these games are too shallow. I, I mean, I'm just going by what I played of Final Fantasy VII, but it just basically amounts to you pressing circle. It's not X because in Japan, X and circle are reversed, and they decided to keep it that way in the U.S. release. But you just keep pressing circle while you're in battle. There's really not much strategy involved compared to something like, say, Pokemon, which is one of the few RPGs I truly love, just because you know each move matters. You know what all the moves do because they're important. You know what who all your enemies are because you're always into the Pokemon, and enemies are very memorable. Whereas in these Final Fantasy games, you don't even know who your enemies are. You're not even sure why you're fighting these enemies. And also like the random battles in these games are a little bit too much. Yeah, there are random battles in Pokemon, but they're designated and you can avoid them, and it's just weird in a 3D game to have random battles, in my opinion. But and just in terms of the story, maybe it's the localization, but I just couldn't get into these characters at all. There's this black character, I don't even remember his name, but the dialogue was just embarrassing. I couldn't even believe that someone like translated it into that. The motivations were just suspect, and maybe I need to play more of it. I only put in like 4 hours in each of my playthroughs. I just couldn't get past that point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much love for this game. I'm sorry to say. I always want to get into these things, like I said, but I can't. And next up is the sequel, Final Fantasy VIII. I actually haven't played it yet. I think I get into the story more. It's just more conventional, kind of this love story. I don't know that much about it, but based on what I've seen about like that ballroom dancing and stuff, it just seemed a little more interesting to me, and not kind of like this emo, like it's me versus the world. I don't care about anyone kind of thing that Cloud gives. Like that's the kind of how Cloud strikes me as, is that kind of lone wolf, which is cool at times, but not in this context, in my opinion. So obviously I can't comment too much about on a game I haven't played. So moving on, Final Fantasy Chronicles, which basically just amounts to a port of Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. In terms of Final Fantasy IV, I don't know why you'd want to play it on this. Just because it does load times, and you can play Final Fantasy IV in many ways. Super Nintendo version, the Game Boy Advance version, the DS version, the PSP version, which recently came out. There's probably more. There's probably one coming to iPhone pretty soon. I mean, 3 just came out, but yeah, I don't know why you'd want to play it on here. They're new additional like cutscenes, but they're not very good. And Chrono Trigger, this is definitely the worst of the 3 officially released versions. The Super Nintendo version and DS versions are almost equal. I definitely recommend those over this. Again, this has load times, and it's kind of at a weird resolution, so it doesn't look right. It kind of looks like blurry, and yeah, I wouldn't get this if I were you. So, yeah. Next up is Chrono Cross. This pretty much has nothing to do with Chrono Trigger. They're only very slightly related, tangentially. And I don't have much to say about it. I think the game itself was very underwhelming, kind of bit more than it could chew. You can tell it was kind of overachieving or trying to overachieve based on the budget, and it just didn't work out. And there's just too many party members. There are like 100 of them, and you got to pare that stuff down. I don't care about 100 different characters, no matter what, no matter how good you think your story is. I will say the music is incredible. It's one of the best soundtracks of all time. I listened to it despite not really liking the game, so that says something. Next up is Parasite Eve, which is kind of a survival horror RPG, which sounded weird on paper, but it actually works pretty well in this game. I actually do quite like this game. Just the main character, I think it's Aya Bray. It might be Aya. I say Aya in my head at least. And Basically, there's this opening scene that's like really incredibly memorable. You're in this opera scene and everything goes to hell. It's like burning and very creepy, and it's great. I will say the mechanics are kind of weird, especially these days. It's kind of slow paced. I'd say kind of like Resident Evil, but not quite. It's kind of like turn based, which is kind of jarring while you're playing a survival horror game. So, but I do like this game quite a bit, and it's shorter compared to other RPGs, which is always a plus in my opinion. And next one is Parasite Eve 2. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I heard it's not nearly as good as the original. It's not, it might not even be a survival horror for all I know. Like I said, I'm not going to comment too much on it since I haven't played it, so. Moving on to the last Square game I own, Einhander. I say Einhander in my head, but I say Einhander just like how people say Forza now instead of Forza. It's just like the correct way, but this is when Squaresoft was at its experimental stage where they put their hand in a lot of different genres, and I don't think anyone ever expected them to make a shoot 'em up. This game is actually a horizontal shoot 'em up, and it's kind of like a 2.5D, as they say. It's 3D on a 2D plane, and I don't know. As someone who likes shoot 'em ups quite a bit, I don't think this one kind of holds up to like Ikaruga or Radiant Silvergun or Dodonpachi or whatever you like. I mean, I guess this is okay for like casual people. I'm not trying to say I'm good at these games, but it just seemed kind of shallow. And I mean, it's an interesting game, like historically, just because it's a Square game and it's kind of unorthodox, and it is kind of fun to play. It's just not something I'd like to go back to very often. And the last game I will mention is Crash 2. I actually have these Crash 1 through 3 on PlayStation Network, so I guess I'll just talk about the series in general, at least the Naughty Dog ones. This series is definitely overrated. I'm sorry to say. They're kind of fun. They're just not memorable in terms of how they play. Maybe the character is memorable because he was of the era, but I just don't think the games are great. They're okay. I recently played the first one with my cousin recently. I already said recently, but we were just laughing the whole way through. It's just the mechanics don't hold up to scrutiny. They're random. Like when you're using your spin attack on enemies, sometimes they spin out and die. Sometimes you spin out and die. It's just a weird game, and there's this like the enemies look terrible in Crash 1. Like there's a skunk who's basically just like a Nilla wafer who's painted like a skunk. It's just the graphics are terrible for some of the enemies, and I'm usually not a graphics criticizer or what have you, but it was just really bad in Crash 1. They kind of cleaned it up in 2 and 3. It looks much better in those the graphics anyway. But yeah, one thing that I will say about to kind of back up my point about the mechanics is that out of curiosity I went to the site Speed Demos Archives, which is basically like an archive for speed runs, and I looked up this game, and they don't have any speed runs of Crash without deaths. There's only one speed run, and it has deaths. So apparently nobody has ever beaten the game without dying, which means that the mechanics don't hold up. Or at least I haven't seen a video where someone hasn't died in one run. So they're fun enough to where you're not offended when you're playing it, and you can still have kind of a good time, I guess, but this didn't compare to its contemporaries like Super Mario 64 or Nights into Dreams or something like that. And it kind of like emphasized this point that I've always thought, is that Naughty Dog was an extremely overrated company until Uncharted. The Jack and Daxter series was just overrated completely. Its praise was simply based upon the fact that it was a Sony exclusive and it was a platformer, just like Insomniac, which I think is probably the most overrated developer today. Spyro, which is okay, Ratchet, okay, Resistance, less than okay. Yet they get praised like they're a top tier developer, which is false in my opinion. So, on that morbid note, thanks for watching the video. I'd say it's probably the PS1 is probably my favorite PlayStation, just because it has a lot of games that I still play today. I still play Castlevania, and I don't have the actual game right now, but Chrono, I love that game. I wish I could review it, but I just don't have it right now. It's been rated on the ESRB for PSN, so I'm definitely going to pick that up when it gets released there. But this has a lot of great games, and it's pretty close between PS1 and PS2, but like I said, I give the edge to one. So thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully put another video up soon.